Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a video review. And for this review, I'm going to be taking a look at the Switch or Switch 1 version of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. Again, sorry for this late review and everything like that. You know, like I said, a lot of things has happened. Like I said, this game is for the Nintendo Switch. This was originally released on the Nintendo GameCube back in 2004. And if you're interested in any gameplay footage, I'll have a link down in the description down below, or you can click on the card that will appear up on this video. Excuse me, assuming you're watching this either on YouTube or Patreon. And for parents out there, it's worth pointing out, Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door is rated E for everyone, all ages, by the ESRB rating system. When it comes to Mario RPGs, a lot of people, or at least from my generation, you could say, remember Super Mario RPG Legends of the Seven Stars, as that was the one that really introduced us to the idea of a Mario RPG in general. And since then, we've had basically, say, different entries or spin-offs here and there, ranging from the Mario and Luigi series, and of course, you know, the Paper Mario series and all. And of course, you know, we just recently had Mario and Luigi Brothership came out. The Paper Mario series is kind of sort of interesting. It first started on the Nintendo 64, and originally at one point it was called Super Mario RPG 2 before basically being called something else, called, I think it was Paper Mario and all. And it was the first Mario RPG not developed by Square at the time, called Squaresoft, which developed the original Super Mario RPG Legends of the Seven Stars for the Super Nintendo. Now, since then, we had different entries on different systems, like Super Paper Mario on the Wii, Paper Mario: The Color Splash on Wii U, Paper Mario Sticker Star Saga on the 3DS, and of course, Paper Mario: The Origami King on basically the Nintendo Switch. And while those games were fun and everything like that, they never reached the height that what many view as the best entry in it, and that was the 2004 release of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. And while I don't think those entries are bad, I can understand some of the criticisms about it, especially with some of the gimmicks or Nintendo trying something new that, let's just say, didn't sit very well with everybody out there. A lot of folks did not like Paper Mario Sticker Star Saga and all, although I didn't have a huge issue with it. Origami King, again, I felt there was a big learning curve because of the combat system that they decided to do with that game. So you kind of understand why Thousand-Year Door was always considered a fan favorite to a lot of Paper Mario fans and Mario RPG fans in general. And there's always been a request to have this game ported over, originally from the GameCube to like other systems. And given the popularity of the Nintendo Switch at the time, that was one of the games that a lot of folks would have loved to have seen come over to that system. And then, of course, basically, it was later announced that this game would be making its way over to the Nintendo Switch, and a lot of fans were apparently happy about that, though. And after spending some time with Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, I will say I do enjoy the game. I still think it holds up and everything like that. But I will admit there are some caveats I've had with the Switch version or Switch 1 version of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. So I'm going to break it down into the pros and the cons, and we'll start off first with the pro. As far as the pro goes, I will say from a visual standpoint, the visual still holds up very well. Even though this was a game originally released back in 2004, it still looks good. I like the handcraft kind of art style kind of approach that they did with this game, and it certainly looks nice and everything like that. I mean, it's a good example of how video games can be an art form to a certain degree. There are other games I could think of that fit that, like Capcom's Okami is a good example of that, to some of the games Suda51's done, like Killer 7, No More Heroes is another good example. So, or Capcom's, Beautiful Joe, that's another one as well. So, yes, I do like the art style in the game. It still holds up, and it's definitely still looks good nevertheless. The next thing I do want to talk about is the combat, and The combat for basically Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, it's more, it's simple or kind of back to basic. Excuse me. Where the combat in the other Paper Mario games always felt like there was sort of a gimmick here and there, or Nintendo trying to experiment and try to do new things. Although I didn't think Super Paper Mario for the Wii was that bad or anything like that. This one goes back to the, more closer to the traditional RPG, or, the traditional Mario RPG in general, whether it's, you remember from Legends of the Seven Stars, or to the current, Mario and Mario Luigi RPGs. In general, though, it's simple. You basically, you attack your character, hit the button correctly, you can do more damage. Hit the button correctly, you can soften the blow when an enemy attacks and everything. So it brings that combat back to a more simple part of it, and I think that's a very good thing. And I do hope, at least if Nintendo develops a brand new Paper Mario game, especially for the Switch 2, now that that's out, though, hopefully they go back to basics and maybe not overdo it with any kind of a gimmick, or overdo it trying to experiment and do something new or anything like that. Not saying they shouldn't do that, but just maybe not go overboard with it, at least from my perspective. And last but not least is the writing and the humor. And I will say, a lot of these times the Paper Mario RPG tend to have humor that, yes, it's aimed towards kids and families, but there are some jokes there that even adults can understand as well. And I definitely enjoy the writing and the humor here, including ranging from Princess Peach's interaction with the enemy's computer, trying to learn more about, Princess Peach or other living beings out there, to when Mario learns a new skill, how the thing claims he's cursing Mario when it's basically just teaching them a new skill here and there. Though I will say that the writing and humor in the game isn't that bad, and I will admit there are some funny moments here and there and all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2, which is the con. So we'll take a little break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of my video review of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door for the Nintendo Switch, or Switch 1. So now that I gave you the pros, why don't we get started with the cons? And there are really only 2 cons I could think of based on my time with Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. The Switch 1 version, though. The first one has to do with the puzzles in the game. Now, for the most part, most of the puzzles in the game are going to be very similar to basically what we see in the GameCube version, and that certainly isn't necessarily a bad thing. However, there are times in the game where some of the puzzles might alter or change a little bit, though, so that might cause some confusion for some folks out there. Like if you have like an old guide for Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, some of the puzzles here are going to be different in the Switch version, such as ranging from, like, there's one area where you ask certain questions and they may change the questions a little bit from the GameCube version to basically, like, one area had like a shed with a rock. It was a little bit different in the GameCube version, but in the Switch version, you had to sort of like move the rock move the rock out of the way and all. So, for the most part, most of the puzzles will be very similar will be mostly the same for the GameCube, but there are going to be some changes here and there, and that could confuse some folks. Not everybody, but some folks out there. And last but not least has to do with basically the frame rate in the Switch version of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. Now, it is worth pointing out the game, at least in dock, is at 1080p but runs at 30 frames per second. Now, I will say, I don't think it's necessarily wrong if a game runs at 30 frames per second, as long as it's a stable 30 frames per second. And I will say the Switch version of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door does run, I would say, very well at 30 frames per second. That being said, however, it is worth pointing out that the GameCube version did run at 60 frames per second, and it is a little bit unfortunate that there is no graphical option, at least at this time, to have it run at 60 frames per second. Even if it's, say, lowering the resolution to maybe, like 720p and get it running at 60 frames per second. So it is very unfortunate though. As far as I'm aware of, I have yet to hear anything about maybe a update for those who are playing this game on the Switch 2, whether there will be any kind of frame rate update or anything like that. So nothing that's come out, at least at this time and all. So again, it's not terrible that it runs at 30 frames per second though. It still runs well, but I will admit it is a little bit disappointing they couldn't get the game running. They didn't get it running at 60 frames per second, or at the very least offer a graphical option to maybe let's say lower the resolution maybe to 720p, but get it running at 60 frames per second. So again, not bad at 30, but I would have liked it to run at 60, or at least offer a graphical option. Overall, I definitely am enjoying Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and it's nice that Nintendo finally ported this game over to basically the Nintendo Switch. At its best though, the visual of the game still holds up. It still looks good. The combat is enjoyable and fun, and mostly pretty much back to basic. And the writing and humor, I do think, is done very well with the game. At its worst, however, is while most of the puzzles will be very similar to the GameCube version, there are going to be times when there may be changes here and there from the GameCube version. And while the game runs pretty well at 30 frames per second, like I said, I am a little disappointed they couldn't get the game running at 60 frames per second, or at least offer some sort of graphical option to maybe lower the resolution to 720p to have it run at 60 frames per second. But in either case though, I am enjoying the Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door from the Nintendo Switch. I'm hoping we'll see another entry in the Paper Mario series, maybe for the Switch 2. That would be great if they could do that. And if it does happen, I would like, as I mentioned before, for Nintendo to ease up a little bit on any kind of gimmick or new gameplay mechanics though. I'm not saying you can't add a gimmick or a gameplay mechanic. It's just I would prefer it not to be on the scale of what we saw with the Origami King, which I felt, at least from my view, the battle system had a learning curve to it, which I really don't think should have been there in the first place. And again, I didn't have a huge amount of issue with Sticker Star Saga's combat, but I can understand why some folks didn't enjoy that though. So I really hope that they don't go overboard with any kind of gameplay mechanics going into the next Paper Mario game, should that pop up on, the Switch 2. And I do hope that Nintendo will do more Mario RPGs. Like, I would be down if one day we see another entry in the Mario Luigi RPG games on the Switch 2, just like I am hoping maybe one day we'll see a new entry in the Paper Mario series appear on the Switch 2 as well. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door for the Nintendo Switch? Are you glad that they ported this game over to the Nintendo Switch? Are you playing it on the Switch 1 or the Switch 2? Do you think the game still holds up even after all these years, even being released 2 decades ago and all? Are you okay with it running at 30 frames per second, or do you wish that the game at least ran at 60 frames per second, or at least offered a graphical option? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you like this video, I hope you hit the like button on this YouTube video. And if you do, make sure you hit the bell make sure you subscribe to my video. And if you do, make sure you hit the bell for any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal Me, Patreon, or Steam Labs. Links will be in the description of this video, assuming you watch this either on YouTube or Patreon. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!